The first thing that happens to experts is the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge states that the more you know about something, the harder it is to imagine what it's like to not know what you know. And you know this if you've ever had a college professor who was clearly a genius, and yet you couldn't understand a damn thing that they said. And it's frustrating when that happens because you're like, I know you've got something to say. I know that there's something valuable that you have that I could learn from, but I can't understand what you're talking about, right? And so it's incredibly frustrating when someone who clearly has information that's interesting to you, nay, valuable to you, useful to you, and you just don't understand what they're talking about or how you can use it or what you should do with it. It's the car mechanic problem for most people. You bring your car in, it's got a problem, and the mechanic starts talking a million miles an hour about how the A-frame was loose. I don't think there's an A-frame. I don't know anything about cars. How the A-frame is loose, and because of that, the gigawatts with the flux capacitor, and you're just like, I had a client who said this once. She said, "Can you just make it go?" Right? I mean, that's what you want. And so you want an expert to have knowledge, to be the expert at what they do and what they know, but you want them to translate it for you so that you can understand what it means and why it's valuable. And so we have the curse of knowledge problem, right? Which is you know too much and you can't remember what it's like to not know what you know. And even as I'm saying this, you're probably thinking, oh, that's right. I know that when I talk about what I know, I need to dumb it down a little bit. But two things on that. One, you don't want to dumb things down because then you're treating people like they're dumb. That's not useful. People don't like being treated like they're dumb. Everybody sees themselves as smart and capable. So you don't want to dumb things down. And my guess is that you don't like the idea of dumbing things down anyway, because you know your subject at a level of nuance and depth that you find important, right? That there are aspects of what you know, edge cases that really do matter and that you don't want to dumb them down. So you know that you have to simplify it for other people. But what happens is this. I'm going to paraphrase an example that one of my mentors gave me a long time ago, which is most experts, in fact, all experts, are at a level 10 knowledge compared to non-experts. So sometimes I say that to someone. I say, you're an expert, you're at a level 10. And they go, no, there's people who know more than I do. I'm really at a level 9. Relative to non-experts, you have a level 10 knowledge. And they have a level 1 knowledge. And what happens is that experts know that they have to simplify. And so they take it from a 10 to an 8. And they're like, nailed it. The problem is the people you're talking to are at a level 1. The gap between 1 and 8 is almost as insurmountable as the gap between 1 and 10. They're not even close. You're going to lose them. What you have to do is take it from a 10 to a 2. And when you take something from a 10 to a 2, you will feel like you're not saying anything. Like what you're talking about isn't even interesting or valuable or worth saying. But what happens to the non-expert is you double their understanding. You take it from a 1 to a 2, that doubles their understanding. They feel so smart now. And when you make other people feel smart, as opposed to making them feel dumb, they're going to stay with you. They're going to listen to you. And so experts have the curse of knowledge. We have this problem of not understanding just how basic the information is that we have to give to people in order to increase what they already understand and earn their attention, let alone their engagement. And the other reason that experts have such a hard time explaining what they know is that your sense of what's important in your field or in your work or with your idea, your sense of what's important is skewed by how much you already know. In other words, there are things that you think are important because they're so interesting in the context of what you already know. But because your listeners don't have the context, they don't have all the edge cases and all the research, you'll say something that you're expecting people to go, wow. But they don't say wow because they don't even know if it should be interesting because they don't have the reference point for it. If I said to you right now, I'm going to make something up. This is absolutely not true. But if I said to you, did you know that the average human brain has 10 million neurons in it? That's clearly not true. I have no idea what's actually true. I don't even know if neurons are in the brain. I don't know anything. I'm an idiot. But imagine if I said that to you. If I said, there are 10 million neurons in the average human brain. Even if that were true, is that interesting to you? You don't know. Maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not. You don't know how many is normal, what you should have. Is that a big number, a small number? You don't have the context to make sense out of something like that, right? And so experts have a skewed sense of importance about things that they find interesting because they have the context. Whereas the things that experts don't tend to find interesting, the really basic stuff, tend to be the most interesting to non-experts. And that is what leads to the types of presentations that we often see scientists, academics, researchers, industry leaders give, which are jargon heavy, exhausting, death by PowerPoint presentations that are just covered in data and stats and facts. And it overwhelms people because we don't have the context. I don't know what you know, and I don't know how any of this stuff is relevant to me. So that is why experts have such a hard time giving compelling presentations. It's not because they don't know so much, it's because they do. As I'm sitting here, I had finished answering the why do experts struggle so much, and my producer and videographer today, Eric Warren, is sitting right here. We were just chatting a little bit. He's got too many kids, and I don't have enough kids. And we were talking about how my son, who's 5, I made a joke the other day. I said to him, I'm on a roll, and then I said, just call me Butter. And he didn't get it. And Eric rightly pointed out, well, he had no context, which is what I had just talked about with you about experts lacking context. And I thought that was funny. And it actually made me think about a thing that happened once where my kid, Milo, he asked me one day, he said, Daddy, he said, Mommy works with kids, right? And I said, yeah, she works with kids. My wife's a licensed marriage and family therapist. She works with little kids with difficult backgrounds and does play therapy and things like that. So she has explained it to him before that she helps kids who feel sad, kind of a thing. And he said, Mommy works with kids. And I said, yeah. He goes, do you work with kids? I said, no, but I don't work with kids. And he goes, you work with grown-ups? I said, yeah, I work with grown-ups. And he said, what do you do with grown-ups? Now, imagine me trying to explain what I do to, at the time, a 4-year-old, right? I do message design for experts. You can't say that to a 4-year-old. And so I thought for a second, I went, how would I explain this to a 4-year-old? And then I went, okay, but I know how sometimes you're trying to tell us something and we just can't get it. You say it and we don't understand what you mean or what you want, and you try to say it again and we still don't understand, and you get frustrated and we get frustrated and it's all very upsetting. And he goes, yeah. And I said, that happens to grown-ups too. Sometimes grown-ups try to explain something that's important to them and people don't understand it and they get frustrated because they just want to make sure that people understand what they're saying. And I help grown-ups talk about the things that they want to talk about so that people understand them and everybody's happy. And he got it. And then said, cool, can I go back to Mario Kart? And I was like, yeah, you can go back to Mario Kart, right? But like, you can do this. No matter how niche or specific or complex you think your topic is, if I can explain message design for experts to a 4-year-old, I promise you can explain it to whoever you're trying to talk to.